Welcome to the FangledCast, brought to you by Fangled Technologies, where we help you convert every person your company touches into a voracious advocate for your brand. And welcome back to the FangledCast, sponsored by Fangled Tech. I've got today a close friend, recently friend, but close friend, I think, Berta Medina, who is a coach. And not just any kind of coach, one that actually has experience and success and came out of a wonderful career to now out of service help others. Just before we kind of get into the meat of the conversation, can you tell me a little bit about your company and what you do, Berta?
Sure. Thank you, Andrew, first of all, for having me. It's always fun to be able to share in conversation with you. So I am honored to be on FangledCast. And Dream or Succeed is my company. It started about 8 years ago, and really focusing around the notion of all of us get to achieve what we dream. And if we stay constant and focused on what we want to achieve, we will get there. It takes consistency. And it really just came to be from the power of vision, which I'm a big believer in. And that's how Dream or Succeed was born.
Absolutely. The reason that we started talking about this and eventually, decided to do the conversation today, mm-hmm. I noticed and then saw data that there's something, depending who you ask, between 1 and 2 million people who, as of the date of COVID's announcement, all of a sudden changed their status to coach. And
yes.
And back when I was in grad school studying psych and the sort of life coach thing began, before it was a thing, it was a thing. And it was kind of the conversation back then was, well, those are the people who couldn't get in grad school. Mm-hmm. So they decide to call themselves life coach because it's not a license, it's not a legal term, and they could go ahead and help people, most of them unqualified. So over the years, that's changed to some truly experienced, trained, helpful coaches in the market for those that don't need psych. But now there's all of these people claiming to be coaches. I'm curious how that's affected your market and the conversations that you have with potential clients.
It's been amazing. And I love that you asked that, Andrew, because it's one of the things when I first started my coaching certification program at the University of Miami, there was just people from everywhere in the world and from every industry. We had attorneys, we had psychiatrists, we had business owners, we had therapists that were already perhaps certified under another, like a Tony Robbins or something like that, coming into this space, and everyone wanted to get into life coaching. Now, I think one of the things that happened was that the ICF did a great job of creating these core competencies and everything that we need to follow for us to really be practicing the art of coaching, which is very different than mentoring or consulting or anything that has to do with giving direct advice. I think where they fell short, perhaps, and I'm not blaming them, they oversee they're the most well-known global organization overseeing coaches, was that there was never a call to legitimize and license coaches. So anybody could print a card on their computer that says they're a life coach, and that's all it takes. So I think what has happened is that it's been positive and negative. I think it has perhaps tarnished the industry to a certain degree, where you say you're a life coach and people almost don't take you seriously. As you mentioned before, it's almost like these are the people that couldn't get into grad school. Whereas the other side of the coin is that when you are really coaching as a coach, and you've done your due diligence as far as getting certification, getting that education, continuously working on your personal development and honing your skills as a coach, you do stand out. And I think that that's one of the things that it's just one of those conundrums that we have to deal with.
Let me ask you this. I know one of the things when I'm looking to any profession for help, whether it's a coach or a photographer or a graphic designer, is I want evidence that they've moved the needle with someone, which means that they have accumulated or accomplished a certain set of skills over time. What do you think about these, like a fresh college grad who hasn't really worked in industry or otherwise, who's now putting up a shingle and saying, I'm a coach? I know in the consulting world, when I see it, I just shake my head.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference with consultancy. It requires so much experience. I believe that coaching as well. I think that I don't knock it. And I see sometimes these very, very energized young people who have spent a great deal of time, despite their age, really working on their personal development. I have a few clients who fall maybe under that category, early 30s, that have just done a lot of living and done a lot of growing and personal development to be able to call themselves a coach. Obviously, they've gotten the certification. Nobody asks, nobody cares, because people don't know that that's a thing most of the time. So there are those rare cases. And then I also know the people my age who go and hang a shingle, and maybe they have had all this living, but haven't really had the experience or worked on their personal development. So I think that it's perhaps not so much an age thing as it is a commitment to being a good coach. That takes...
I'm sorry. Have you met coaches that are actually extremely effective as coaches, but really didn't have a breadth of experience before they became a coach?
I'm going to be honest with you. Some of the best coaches that I have met are not certified. They don't fall under the ICF guidelines. They have just really, really committed themselves to, like I said, working on themselves enough, learning the craft. I mean, they're avid readers most of the time, and they will attend and invest in their own personal development and their professional development. And really all it takes is coming from a place of service. I always tell people, listen, if you're coming in to make money as a coach, there's no money in coaching. The money or the abundance and the success comes from the results that these clients are getting as a result of working with you. And that takes commitment and dedication and all the other things that I highlighted before.
So you really don't think that necessarily a breadth of life experience prior to the coaching training is necessary? You think that some people just naturally can study enough on their own to kind of figure it out?
I think it helps. I think it absolutely helps. And I think, again, it depends on that level of commitment to really learning. Mm-hmm. and to having by default in your DNA a passion for helping. Now, I'm not going to say that that's all of them. I'm going to say that those are probably the exceptions and not the rule. But I've seen it. So I can't speak to anything against it. I just think that you can tell the difference between a coach who has invested in themselves and in their professional development versus someone who just isn't, and they're doing their clients a disservice, but they're out there. I mean, it just is what it is.
It's interesting in the sales world when you're looking for a manager to manage a team of salespeople. Mm-hmm. Probably the worst guy that you could pick is your highest performing hunter salesperson as the leader, mm-hmm. because all of the things that they've learned are completely out of alignment with what you need to be a coach of a sales team to properly help grow and coach and make a sales team grow. And I know some coaches out there. There's a great book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I think the author is Goldman. That I give to people as a gift all the time because it has that transition. So it's really, there's sort of a magic mix of qualification, life experience, drive, and that dedication to service. This sort of is the mix of what you need before you even begin to train. Would you agree?
I absolutely would. And I think that what'll happen, Andrew, and I'll give you just a short little scenario. When we enrolled, there were 14 of us in our cohort at UM. Mm-hmm. And like I said, there were people from the islands, there were people from across the pond, there were people from everywhere in the United States. And of those 14, 13 completed the coursework. And then there's a long drawn out process where you have to do a certain amount of hours and you have to do the final exam, and that takes its own jumping through hoops, hire mentor coaches that can get you there and things of that nature. I think there were maybe half of us probably completed and took that course through through completion at the end of the 2 years with the final exam. And I think at the very beginning, there were only 3 of us who bothered to get certified by the ICF.
Wow.
Now, does that change the caliber of coach that they are? Probably not. I think if they're dedicated and they're committed, they can do great work and bring great results to people. But at the same time, what it did, I think, was weed a lot of people out, because I think what happened is many of us, and maybe myself included, got in thinking, oh, this is going to be so much fun. This is going to be great. And it was fun. I'm not saying it wasn't, but we're just going to, this is easy. And it really is not. I mean, the coursework to get the certification is fairly intense. And I think anybody who's doing the certification, it's intense as far as hours. I'm not saying academically it's anything overbearing. But as far as the time that you have to put in, the practice work that you have to put in. So you come out sort of with a lot more experience in coaching. But I'll be honest with you, that first weekend that we were in class, it was a weekend, in-person weekend. We were there Saturday, all day Sunday. And when we left Sunday, they said, tomorrow you start coaching. Yeah. And this is a program that is one of the first ones that was certified by the ICF. The lady who wrote the curriculum for this program was one of the creators of the ICF. So it's a very well-respected program, but at the same time, they know that the only way to become a coach is to coach.
It was interesting when I was in grad school studying psychology, counseling. It was very clear to see that there were basically 2 motivators to be in the program. There were those who wanted to learn because they wanted to service and truly help and grow. And there were others who signed up for the program because they kind of needed help and figured if they studied psych, maybe some of it might rub off on them.
Yes.
Did you see the same thing in the coaching world?
Yes, 100%. And it's almost like you can see, we talk about it all the time, especially those who are willing to open up. And I'm sort of an open book, so I have no problem with it. But we always say we coach around what we need the most. For me, I got straight into coaching around the comfort zone, because that was just my thing. I didn't know it at the time, but now in hindsight, I'm looking back and I'm looking at how far I've stretched beyond my comfort zone. And it's no mistake that's where I gravitated towards.
I'm of the belief, whether it's coach, psychologist, counselor, psychiatrist, the most effective ones are the ones that have actually worked on themselves as part of the process of learning, because they've been there and they understand it. It's that life experience that makes them that much more intuitive in dealing with the people that they're working with.
Absolutely.
So tell me, if someone came to you today and said, I need a coach, how do I find one? You're booked, you've got no space on your calendar, so you're not promoting your business.
Right.
What are the steps that someone should go through to seek out, interview, understand, and choose a coach?
I think, and that's a great question, Andrew. Thank you for asking that. I think one of the first things is really to understand yourself and why it is that you feel that you need coaching. And that's going to be key, because you're going to be able to convey what you're looking for in coaching, and to make sure that what you need is coaching and not therapy or not something else. The second thing that you should look for is really, and I always tell people, you need to be speaking to a number of coaches before you make that final decision. A lot of times people will use price as a determining factor. Either they want the most expensive one because they think they're the best, or they want to save the most money. And price is not a determining factor of the quality of the coach, because there is nothing regulating how much a coach charges. It's one of the things that my clients struggle with the most is that pricing of themselves as speakers or as coaches, because there's no formula. There's no magic formula. So that's another thing. I say speak to as many coaches as you can, and eventually your gut is going to tell you where you should go. Make sure that the coach is not just jumping into their list of features. If someone comes to me and they say, listen, how do I know that you're the right coach for me? And I say, listen, I don't know if I'm the right coach for you, because I don't even know what you need. So as if they're sensing that coach is coming from a genuine place of curiosity, from a genuine place of wanting to get to know not just the problem, because usually the problem that they say at the beginning is not really the problem. It's probably 2 or 3 layers deep. But a curious, powerful coach is going to be able to get in there and really extract what it is. Make sure that it's someone that is challenging your perspective and not just telling you, oh, yes, that's great. Yes, I hear you. Because sometimes that's a giant red flag too. If they're being too overly agreeable and they're not challenging you, they're not going to help you move the needle. Should a good
coach be able to share with you examples of before and after with people they've helped in the past?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no reason why they couldn't. And there's nothing wrong with that. They don't have to get into specifics or into names, but yes, absolutely. Examples of, many great coaches are going to have testimonials. Not that you can always go by that, but they should have really great examples of people that they've journeyed with and have been able to, as you say, Andrew, not only move that needle, but really get those people to a place where, I'm not big. And I tell people all the time, try to avoid a long contract with a coach, because you just don't know until you're in the thick of coaching how that's going to be. So I would be cautious of that as well.
It seems to me that knowing the list of the red flags first may even be more beneficial in choosing a coach, because it's, kind of in the world, like, for example, you're out looking for a PR agent to help you promote your business. One of the things I've discovered over the years, it's a huge red flag. And the question I always ask when we're bringing PR people into projects, how many clients did you turn down this month? And they go, well, we haven't turned any down. Well, that's a red flag.
That's
because not everybody who reaches out to you, can you help?
No.
So what other, can you think of any other red flags that just sort of pop up that besides seeing a sign on the door that makes you think they're a cult member?
Yeah, that's always a good red flag. But I think really a lot of us are a lot more intuitive than we think, Andrew, and many times we'll just feel it. And you can tell when that integrity, and I think the integrity is a huge piece when it comes to coaching and who you're aligning yourself with, because many times we'll blend and become very involved with each other, and that trust has to be there. If you already can't, or you hear the way that they're talking about their clients or previous clients, and they're wanting to show, they'll share a name and they'll say, hey, do you know so-and-so? Because that's a huge breach of integrity just as humans, forget about as coaches. Yeah. And I think that needs to be.
I had this similar conversation a while back with someone who was involved in a different area. But when I asked him, I said, when you're dealing with a potential new client, what's the most important thing that you look for? And he says, I'm always making sure that they don't want me to be one more excuse for them to fail. And I joke, because I've said for years that the leading cause to obesity in America is diet books. If you talk to anyone who's overweight, that shelf of diet books is nothing more than a series of reasons why they're going to fail. Every diet book is a failure. I can't lose weight. No. I've always found that to be a very profound sort of thought in this arena.
And it is. That's super interesting. And the truth is that's what it is. That's why sometimes, and I'll tell you, I turn down clients all the time when I know that I'm not the best fit for them. And I do it with integrity. I know that there are coaches out there that are just trying to hoard as many clients. I have a very boutique approach to my business, because I'm a firm believer in that work-play balance. And I love what I do. So the lines are so blurred between my play and my coaching that sometimes I can't tell the difference. I'll be away and someone will say, oh, but you're away this week. I didn't want to bother you. And I say, this is my happy place, is when I'm coaching. But there have been people who I have immediately fallen in love with. And I know that based on what they need, I'm not the right coach. And at first they get a little, oh my gosh, she doesn't want to coach me. And that's not it. I want to serve you. Yeah. And I may not be the best fit for you as a coach.
Yeah. There's a hidden gem within that too, that people don't realize. As a company, we turn down, if we don't think that we're the right fit for the marketing and sales work that they need, We turn down business quite often. Sometimes it's in areas that we don't have someone within our team that's an expert or otherwise. But I'd be willing to bet that 3 out of 5 clients that we've turned down have ended up being referral sources because of the integrity we showed.
Exactly.
Have you had that happen where you've turned somebody down and the next thing you know, they've sent you people?
Yes, all the time. And I love when that happens. This happened to me a couple of months ago. I did a speaking engagement, and the gentleman reached out to me a year later and left me the cutest message. And he said, listen, I need to get out of my comfort zone and we need to do it. And another thing, Andrew, I'm full disclosure. My prices are on my website. I know that a lot of people are hesitant to do that. I would caution people. I'm not saying that it's not a good sales tactic, okay, because you'll get them on the phone and you can, have a conversation and see where that goes. I'm full disclosure and I have no problem. And so he had been on my website. He said, I went on your website. He already knew what my prices were. So we meet, he lives in Jupiter, and we met in the middle at a Starbucks on a Friday night. And we had a great conversation. He was like a dream client, very clear on what he wanted and why he wanted it. And throughout our conversation, I realized that he didn't want a life coach, comfort zone coach. What he wanted was a speaking coach, someone who could prepare him for this particular presentation that he wanted to do and a speech that he wanted to deliver at his daughter's wedding later that year. And I said, listen, I really just was enrolled in what he was about, because those are my people. When the why is very clear and very heart-centered, that lights me up. And I said, listen, I have a really, really great coach that I would love to introduce you to. Because it sounds to me, and this was 2 hours of clarifying questions to make sure that I wasn't making assumptions. And they started working. At first he was like, oh, but you don't want to call. And I said, listen, just have a conversation with him. I guarantee you. And he said, yeah, but he felt so bad. He said, what if I pick him over you? And I said, this is not what this is about. We're family now, and I am enrolled in your vision, and I am excited for you. And they've been working together for a number of months now, and just have the most beautiful relationship. And they check in all the time. And I love that, because that's just what we're all about. And I'm not and I don't knock it. I know that people are. I'm not a referral fees person. I don't accept referrals ever, referral fees. Yep. So it just keeps me honest. And what I do is what I do for love.
Yeah, I know the one thing that
I believe in people.
We have in common that attracted us to become friends was the lead with service. And when people lead with service and with kindness, it has the effect on people who in a world where lately people don't feel much kindness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When somebody feels like somebody is truly offering their service out of kindness, and they're not trying to take advantage, because that's not part of kindness, but also ask the questions to get them to talk about themselves and be heard, it always leads to better things. Whether they become your client or the 20 people they brag about you become your client. Yeah. Exactly. Positivity spreads. You get this, internet reviews. It only takes one guy to be upset, right, to ruin your business. And it's like, we're in the business of creating voracious advocates for brands. If you've treated every customer along the way until that one curmudgeon shows up and tries to screw it up, those advocates who love you take care of that for you. Exactly. There's a reason. I love that. People line up all day outside Apple stores without even knowing if the product they're about to drop $1,000 on is even going to work. Because they become so voracious advocates for those people. It's the same in the coaching and in the consulting world. Right. I would say 9 out of 10 clients who come to us these days come to us with wounds from an agency that ripped them off, or didn't provide, didn't listen, tried to shoehorn them into something rather than going back to the core and understanding what their real needs were. So and then what happens, Andrew, sometimes is that you're just showing up in your natural habitat, right? You're showing up the way that you are, but to them it seems like it's something so grandiose, because they're coming from this, and we need to make sure that the default of the world is,
that service. I just did I'm working with a great organization called Wiki Voice, and we're building this platform for a kindness challenge. And I was in Tennessee, and I just sat down for a little bit, and I started working on an article called undoing the strangeness of kindness, because it's strange for people sometimes when you are over delivering in value. And how do you measure that as a coach, right?
Yeah,
but I think another great question, Andrew, that just came to me is to ask your coach if they're coaching, because every good coach has a good coach. And I think one of the things that I have never had a problem showing up for my clients or talking about feeling like I'm in a position where I know I can either guide them or not guide them, depending on what their needs are, is that I've always invested in my coaching myself, more than most people that I know. And I will do that until, I always say I have 47 good years left on this planet. And when I'm 100, and because that keeps elevating my game, and that keeps elevating my service to my clients and how I show up for them. And I've had the blessing of having coaches along the way that when we get here, they'll say, listen, you probably need to call so-and-so.
Yeah.
And I love that integrity in them. And I, because that's how I live my life as well. So.
Yeah. But before we wrap up, is there anything about coaching that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Maybe do I enjoy it? It's the only thing I can think of. And I think most coaches who are doing it right enjoy what they do. I think people who are not enjoying it are probably doing something either out of integrity or something that they need to look into. But I always say that that I didn't choose coaching. Coaching chose me.
Interesting.
And one of my dear friends, when I first went in to get, because they'd always called me coach, I didn't even know coaching was a career. And he said, when he found that I was in getting certified, he said, this career fits you like a glove.
Interesting.
And I think we can tell the coaches that were called to coaching.
Yeah. I recently wrote an article about people that say, I hate being sold. And I've always said that's because you hate bad salespeople. People love to be sold. Because the reality is coaching and sales, if both parties aren't enjoying it, a romance too, if both parties aren't enjoying it, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely.
That's fascinating.
I love that. That was a great article too. I remember that.
Oh, thank you. So anyhow, it's really been a pleasure to have you on the show.
So much fun, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
I always get something out of our conversations. It's always a great time. So thank you so much. And for those at home or jogging or wherever the heck you are while you're watching or listening to this, thank you for joining us today. And we hope that you like, share, shout from the mountaintop, smoke signals, all that good stuff to get the word out about the FangledCast. And we look forward to seeing you the next one. Bye now.
Thank you.
Brought to you by Fangled Technologies, where we help you convert every person your company touches into a voracious advocate for your brand.